how you work with George? How you kind of start the process? Explain how this collaboration works.
I could talk all day about that. No, one of the funny things is that growing up, well, first, I mean, I was painfully shy, so that's why I gravitated towards art. Words were never my strength. Visual images were, and so as a kid, I really drew art, and I wanted to learn more about, how to create storytelling, story art. And my earliest forms were actually almost like silent movies, where I created panels, and it's very much like comic books. It's very much like what we're celebrating here. And one of the things that I kind of honed my skills growing up, because when I saw Star Wars, it was transformative for me because it opened up a whole world of people behind the scenes creating the art that I loved growing up. And this was never really exposed to me before, and that's why I think the museum is going to highlight a good portion of that. But what it did was it allowed me to start learning about art. I didn't go to art school, I'm self-taught, but I started to really find as many magazines as possible, and I honed my craft as best as I could. And I thought I was pretty competent, but then I started working with George. Honestly, and that's when I realized I know nothing about design and art, narrative design and art. I knew about industrial design, I could do product designs, I could do cool spaceships, but that's not what narrative art is. Narrative art is driven by story. Story comes first, the art comes second. And it was one of the biggest lessons that I learned because, as you'll see in some of my early art on the prequels, they weren't very successful because I was designing in isolation, without context, and part of it was because I didn't know what the story was. But the designs were always kind of presented as, these are kind of individual items. And I was forgetting about the connection of how those designs fit into the overall picture of the story. Later on, you'll see that I slowly started to evolve because I started to take lessons from George where I learned, those designs need history, they need context, and they need to fit within the scenes. So I started to present designs within the context of a scene. I started to invent the scenes to try to see and validate the designs. And it's one of those things that I learned from George where cinematic narrative design is very specific. It's story driven.